What's up, Ente? What's up, Rasa? I wanted to talk about $40 trillion. That's the debt the United States has. And this is something that's been building up. This is not new, but the fact that it's reached $40 trillion should be shocking to people. It's something that a lot of us keep, an eye on, especially if you're, planning on retirement, if you have money saved up or maybe stored away somewhere. What does that mean for your dollar? What does that mean if you don't have money invested, right? Some people don't have money, and that's just the truth. The vast majority of the people don't have 401ks, things like that. So, what does that mean for the normal person, the common person, the one who's probably relying on the regular US dollar? Well, it means that the US dollar is just becoming worthless. That's what it means for common people who use regular, cash and spending, or even if you're using Cash App, Venmo, all those things, right? If you're using the regular currency, your dollar is not worth much. And that's sad because that's the majority of us. How did we get here? All the US presidents going back 250 years of this country's history have contributed to it, whether it be through wars, whether it be through spending. That obviously there's tax and spending that takes place when they vote to tax and spendings. And I'll be looking at some of the things here, but I want you all to understand that the person most responsible for this right now, the person who is responsible for at least 30% of it, Donald Trump, the current president. Again, we don't talk about small things here. I want to be clear on this, Rasa. We got to talk about the big things, and this is big, especially for the common household family or people who are trying to make it. Just struggling, right? Uh, Donald Trump is responsible for 30% of it. Some of it is also the COVID, what happened with COVID, and then a vast majority also goes back to where the Congress passes laws on what to spend for, including education. They've cut down on that, by the way, healthcare, things like that. Especially the Trump administration. This is why, partly because they're responsible for 30% of it, especially during his first term, second term together. But combined, so this guy's responsible for it. But the vast majority, it's going to be wars. It's going to be the weapons and the things that are invested in to go in and attack other countries, take over the countries. It's going to be all the kickbacks and all the corruption that you see happening right now in front of our faces by this administration. That doesn't mean that Bill Clinton, that doesn't mean that Barack Obama or Joe Biden were responsible for anything, especially George W. Bush when that fool was in power. He launched that war, that illegal war. Well, we have another illegal war, and the United States has always launched illegal wars, and because of that, that is the main thing that's driving up the cost, along with the corruption that we are not seeing. And I'm going to stress that. Some people are going to say, well, it's all that spending we're doing on education, it's all the spending we're doing on healthcare. Heck, we're not doing any of that. And if anything, Donald Trump has cut down on that. He's cut down on the healthcare. You got millions of kids who are going to go hungry because of SNAP programs that are going to end. You got people who are basically being thrown out in the street because of the programs that we should maintain, and we're not. We are not. So this system is broken. It's been broken. It's just a matter of time. Now you got an incompetent buffoon, an incompetent fool falling asleep in the White House, who's probably, he shouldn't be there. He shouldn't be there at all. But at this point, we're not going to get any better. I want to make that point clear because what is a possible solution to this? Overturn, redo, restructure, redo this whole thing, rethink this thing called America. That's just the point. Rethink it because obviously it's not working. Obviously, it's not working for the common person. It's working for the wealthy Elon Musk type, right? The 1% who own everything, the Zuckerbergs and all of them who own everything. They're the ones. It's working perfect for them because they're making a lot of money. But for the common person who doesn't have 401ks invested into Wall Street, they're not. It's not working. So let's overturn this. Let's undo this. Let's scrap this, and then we gotta have a conversation amongst us, just like African Americans and other indigenous groups and Asian groups and others who been marginalized and been victimized by this country. We've got to have a conversation. Do we want to stick to this project called the United States of America? Because it obviously was never meant for us. That's why it's not a nation. It's not a nation. A nation has a common language, common everything. The United States, here I am speaking Spanish, but I mean English, but I speak Spanish as well. A lot of people have never been, allowed to be part of this, and we're never intended to be part of this project called America. So it's never reached nationhood status. If anything, and I'll give one of the professors, Professor Carr, I believe he's an African American professor in the East Coast, who made a point about this country not being a nation. Not it's if anything, it's just a country because the white supremacists have always wanted it to be a white supremacist nation, but they were unsuccessful because African Americans revolted, Native Americans revolted. People today are revolting. They reject this project of white supremacy. We were forced. It was forced on us, or us as indigenous people, including Chicanos. We were here first, right? It was forced on us, and then it was forced on our African American brothers and sisters, or the black brothers and sisters who were brought here illegally in the slave trade, right? So for a lot of people, and by the way, not to leave that point, some people, they fled their countries as migrants because of the actions of the United States. So this project has been forced on a lot of people. We're going to have to talk about it. Are we going to be part of this country or this so-called nation? Because at this point, the only way it's going, it has been white supremacy. And the point is made clear with $40 trillion, where a vast majority is going towards wars against people of color, against countries of color, against people in Africa, Asia, Latin America, places where white supremacy really thrived forever. And now that people are rebelling, people are fighting back, this country finds itself in a hole. So we're gonna have to we're gonna have to tackle that. Do we want to continue being part of this project or not? And then if we are going to be if we are going to continue being part of this project, then we're going to talk about what kind of country do we truly want. Because as many of you know, I'm a socialist out here. I believe in socialism. I believe that's an important part of who we've always been. Communism is a beautiful thing, but I've been to Cuba, and I know for a fact that China, even though they call themselves a communist country, they strive for communism. Communism is not yet have can be achieved, hasn't been achieved. It's a beautiful thing on paper, but if anything, we could strive for socialism. Socialism where the people are taken care of because the means of production are owned collectively by the people. The water, the internet, electricity, the fuel, things that people need to survive, even the food and medical. The most important part, I think, of what we need to advocate for is medical services, free healthcare for all. This is something so critical, and this is why I push and have been pushing as a Chicano for a socialist economic system. But it won't work if we don't have the right values, and that's what's also wrong with this country. And that's why Chicanos also have to think about: do we want to stick to this project? Because the values of this country have been white supremacy, like I said, based on slavery, and it's also been exploitation of people throughout the world. But they can't get it here; they'll get it there. It's been based on capitalism, which divides people, which divides and conquers people, pits people against each other, to start competing against each other at a horrible, horrible scale. Where I've been to Cuba and I've seen where the Secret Service, or even the CIA, and the U.S. forces down there, the underground forces, they're trying to divide the people using money, using American cash, using that mentality of, I can out you should shop with me because I can outdo my neighbor, and don't look at my neighbor. And they put down their neighbor who's also selling something similar. And this was done a couple of years back, and Cuba found a way around it, but it's still going on where they undermine the economy. And that is the problem with capitalism. It forces people to compete and hate each other. Under socialist capitalist or socialist system, we don't have that. Capitalism requires that. So I want to throw it out there: $40 trillion, 30% of it is under Trump. The vast majority is based on war, and we are not even seeing the stuff, including black ops and stuff that we're never even told about. So if there was ever a time for us to start, considering what are we going to do? Well, your pocketbook, your dollar, your monthly wage, or salary, I should say, or wage has not increased and kept up with inflation. And if anything, the common person, the normal person out there, is going to struggle. And we need to rethink this project called America. $40 trillion. And I'll be doing a whole thing on money later on, because $40 trillion is a lot, but it places us in a bad position, in a horrible position to have to choose some of the worst stuff that we're not choose from. This is why people turn to crime to make ends meet, right? But yet America can print money, and that's why a lot of people talk about the debt, and talk about money being a Ponzi scheme, money being a lie, because you could, at the snap of his finger, or the Congress can print money. Well, Trump shouldn't print money because he's not supposed to, but the Congress has bent over backwards, giving them that power. So uh, right now, Trump can order the money with the printing of money if he wanted to, because Congress has no power. They gave it up to him, and that is something that has been done throughout the history of the United States. They just up the debt, up the ceiling, up, and the priorities are backwards. They're not investing into people. And just like China, if you look at China, they do invest into people. Unlike China, America does not invest into people. China invests into its citizens, its people, its workers, into its healthcare, schools, things that should be invested. Those are the priorities. Those are the things we should be investing in. If the United States wasn't purposely trying to keep Cuba so poor, we'd be seeing a whole different country out there, not struggling economically, right? And so, with that said, I wanted to bring that to your attention. Hopefully, everybody pays attention to what's happening to world affairs, to news, because it impacts us as raza, as Chicanos, who many of us are struggling to get by, whether it be food, rent, etc., medical payments, bills, etc. Don't fall, into the trap of not paying attention. Please pay attention. $40 trillion is shocking, but I'm not surprised at it's Donald Trump doing it. All right.